The bitter December wind howled through the streets of Fort Stockton, Texas, carrying with it the sting of sleet that bit at June Forrester's face as she clutched her weak old baby girl tighter to her chest, desperately trying to shield the infant from the unforgiving elements. Her thin shawl provided little protection against the unusually harsh winter of 1885, and she knew with growing dread that they wouldn't survive another night in the abandoned livery stable, where they'd been sheltering since her arrival in town 3 days ago. June's tears froze against her cheeks as she stumbled down the muddy road that led away from town. The merchants had made it clear she wasn't welcome to beg on their doorsteps anymore, and the church had already given what little they could spare. With no money and no prospects, the 19-year-old widow had only one option left: to try the outlying homesteads where perhaps someone might take pity on a mother and child. The baby whimpered against her breast, the sound nearly lost in the wind. "Hush now, Lily," June whispered, her voice breaking. "Mama will find us somewhere warm. I promise." As darkness began to fall, panic rose in June's throat. She'd wandered much farther than she intended, and the scattered lights of Fort Stockton had disappeared behind her. Ahead, barely visible through the swirling sleet, a small cabin stood silhouetted against the gray horizon, a thin wisp of smoke curling from its chimney. With her last reserves of strength, June trudged toward it, her boots sinking into the muddy earth with each step. By the time she reached the weathered porch, she could barely feel her fingers or toes. The baby had gone ominously quiet. With a trembling hand, June knocked on the door. No answer came. She knocked again, harder this time, desperation lending strength to her frozen fingers. The door swung open suddenly, revealing a tall man with broad shoulders and a face shadowed by several days' growth of beard. His eyes, a startling shade of blue, widened at the sight of her. "Please," June managed to whisper before her knees buckled beneath her. The man moved with surprising speed, catching her before she hit the porch floor. "Good Lord," he muttered, his deep voice rumbling through her as he supported her weight. "My baby," she gasped, struggling to stay conscious. "Please help my baby." Without a word, he scooped them both up and carried them inside, kicking the door closed behind him. The warmth of the cabin enveloped June like an embrace, and she felt her frozen limbs begin to tingle painfully as circulation returned. The man gently deposited her in a chair near the fireplace. "Let me see the little one," he said gruffly, already unwrapping the threadbare blanket from around the infant. June wanted to protest, to keep her child close, but she was too weak. She watched through half-closed eyes as the stranger cradled her daughter with surprisingly gentle hands, his face a mask of concern. "She's cold, but she's breathing fine," he announced after a moment. "Let me get her warm." He moved with the efficiency of a man accustomed to emergencies, placing the baby in a small wooden box that he pulled close to the fire. He lined it with what looked like his own shirts, creating a makeshift cradle. Then he turned his attention back to June. "You're half frozen yourself," he said, draping a thick woolen blanket around her shoulders. "Can you drink this?" He pressed a tin cup of something hot into her hands. The aroma of strong coffee laced with whiskey rose to meet her. "Thank you," June murmured, taking a small sip. The liquid burned a fiery path down her throat, but the warmth spread quickly through her chest. "I didn't know where else to go. The town isn't always kind to those in need," he finished for her. "I know, name's Beau Young, this is my place." "June Forrester," she replied. "And my daughter, Lily." Beau nodded, moving to a pot that hung over the fire. "You hungry? Got some stew here, nothing fancy, but it'll fill you up." June's stomach growled loudly in response, and a flush of embarrassment colored her cheeks. She couldn't remember when she'd last eaten a proper meal. "That'd be very kind, Mr. Young." Just Beau, he corrected, ladling stew into a bowl. Mr. Young was my father, and he's been gone near 15 years now. As June ate, the warm food reviving her bit by bit, she took the opportunity to study her rescuer. Beau Young appeared to be in his late 20s, his face weathered by sun and wind but handsome in a rugged way. His movements were deliberate and economical, suggesting a man comfortable with solitude and self-reliance. The cabin itself was simple but well-maintained. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall, while a narrow bed occupied another. A table with 2 chairs stood in the center of the single room, and shelves held books, tools, and supplies. It was clearly the home of a bachelor, but it was clean and orderly. "Why are you out here all alone with a newborn?" Beau asked finally, settling into the chair across from her. "If you don't mind my asking." June's spoon stilled. The question was direct, but his tone held no judgment. Still, the story was a painful one to tell. "My husband, Thomas, died in a mining accident in Colorado 3 months ago," she began, her voice small. "We'd been heading to San Antonio where his brother has a carpentry shop. Thomas was going to apprentice with him." She paused, swallowing hard. "When he died, I was already with child. I tried to continue to San Antonio, but our wagon broke an axle near Fort Stockton, and I couldn't afford to have it fixed." Beau listened in silence, his expression grave. "I sold what I could to rent a room while I waited for Lily to come, but the money ran out quickly. She was born a week ago in the back room of a laundry where a Chinese woman took pity on me." June's eyes filled with tears. "We've been staying wherever we could since then, but with the weather turning." "And no one in town offered to help?" Beau asked, a sharp edge to his voice. June shrugged helplessly. "Times are hard for everyone. The drought last summer and now this early winter. People are worried about their own families." Beau made a sound that might have been disagreement, but he didn't argue the point. Instead, he rose and checked on the baby, who had fallen into a peaceful sleep in her improvised bed. "She looks stronger already," he observed. "Babies are tougher than they look." He glanced back at June. "You both can stay the night. Tomorrow I'll take you into town, see about getting that wagon of yours fixed." Relief washed over June. "I can't thank you enough, Mr. Beau, but I have no money to pay for repairs." "Let me worry about that," he replied simply. "For now, you need rest. Take the bed. I'll make up a pallet for myself by the fire." June wanted to protest such generosity, but exhaustion was rapidly claiming her. She checked on Lily once more, then gratefully accepted Beau's offer, sinking into the first real bed she'd known in weeks. Despite her many worries, sleep claimed her almost instantly. She woke sometime in the night to Lily's hungry cries. Before she could fully rouse herself, Beau's voice came softly from near the fireplace. "I've got her," he said. "Just warming some of that goat's milk from Mrs. Peterson's place down the way. My neighbor," he added by way of explanation. "Brought it over yesterday. Didn't know I'd have need of it so soon." June sat up, astonished to see the tall cowboy expertly cradling her fussing daughter while warming a bottle in a small pan of water. "You seem to know what you're doing," she observed, moving to join him. A shadow passed over Beau's face. "Had a little sister once," he said simply. "Helped raise her after our ma passed." Something in his tone warned June not to press for details. Instead, she reached for Lily. "Thank you, but I can feed her now." He handed over the baby and the warmed bottle without comment, turning away to give her a semblance of privacy. June settled into the chair, coaxing Lily to take the unfamiliar bottle. The baby fussed at first, but soon began to drink eagerly. "She's strong," Beau commented, still keeping his back to them as he stoked the fire. "Got a good appetite." "Yes," June agreed, watching her daughter's tiny face as she drank. She's all I have left now." Beau didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was pitched low, almost as if he were speaking to himself. "It's a hard thing being left alone in this world." The next morning brought clear skies but bitter cold. Beau was already up and preparing breakfast when June awoke. The simple meal of biscuits, bacon, and coffee was the best she'd eaten in months. As promised, Beau hitched his horse to a small wagon and drove them into Fort Stockton. June couldn't help noticing how differently people treated her with Beau at her side. Shopkeepers who had chased her away the day before now nodded respectfully, and the blacksmith who had refused to even look at her wagon without payment up front now assured Beau that he could have it fixed by the following day. "You've got quite an effect on people," June observed as they left the blacksmith shop. Beau shrugged. "Been in these parts a long time. People know I pay my debts and keep my word." He glanced down at her. "And folks around here respect a man more than a woman alone, fair or not." "Well, I'm grateful for your help," June said sincerely, "though I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "No need," Beau replied, "just doing what anyone should." But as they visited the general store to purchase supplies, Beau insisting on adding warm clothes for June and proper blankets for Lily to their purchases, June realized that what he was doing went far beyond ordinary kindness. That night, back at Beau's cabin, June finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been troubling her all day. "Why are you helping us like this? You don't know me. I could be anyone." Beau was silent for so long that June thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but steady. "10 years ago, I rode with a group of men who weren't particular about the law," he began. "I was young, angry at the world. My pa was dead, my ma followed not long after, and my sister." He paused, his jaw tightening. "My sister died of fever while I was away. I blamed everyone but myself for how my life had turned out." He poked at the fire, sending sparks up the chimney. "One night we rode into a small homestead, just looking to steal some horses, maybe some food, but the man there tried to protect his family. Things went bad, real bad." June felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. "I didn't fire my gun that night, but I was there. I watched it happen and did nothing to stop it." Beau's eyes reflected the dancing flames. "A woman was widowed, a child left fatherless. Because of men like me." He looked up at her, his expression raw with an old pain. "I can't undo what was done, but I swore after that night that I'd never again stand by while someone needed help, especially not a woman and child alone." June didn't know what to say. The confession was unexpected and clearly painful for him to share. "I'm sorry for what happened," she said finally, "but I'm grateful that it led you to become the man who opened his door to us last night." Beau's smile was tinged with sadness. "I've spent 10 years trying to make up for the man I was. Don't know if that's even possible." "I believe it is," June replied softly. "The past doesn't have to define your future." Beau's eyes met hers and something passed between them, a moment of understanding that transcended their brief acquaintance. "Your wagon should be ready tomorrow," he said, breaking the moment. "You'll be able to continue to San Antonio, find your husband's family." June nodded, though the prospect no longer filled her with the hope it once had. In the day and a half she'd known Beau Young, she'd begun to feel safer than she had since Thomas died. The thought of leaving this unexpected haven made her heart ache in a way she hadn't anticipated. The next day brought another surprise. When they returned to Fort Stockton to retrieve her wagon, the blacksmith informed them that the repairs would take another 2 days at minimum. "Axle's worse than I thought," the burly man explained, not quite meeting June's eyes. "Need to order a part from El Paso." June's heart sank. 2 more days meant 2 more days of imposing on Beau's generosity, But when she glanced at him to gauge his reaction, she was startled to see what looked like relief flit across his features. "That's so," Beau replied, his tone neutral. "Well, can't be helped. Send word when it's ready." As they drove back to his cabin, June said hesitantly, "I hate to impose on your kindness any longer. Perhaps there's somewhere in town I could stay while the wagon is being repaired." Beau's hands tightened on the reins. "The only place in town for a woman alone would be Madame Resita's, and that's no place for you or the baby." His voice softened. "You're welcome to stay at my place as long as needed. It's no imposition." Over the next 2 days, they fell into a surprisingly comfortable routine. June, determined not to be a burden, took over the cooking and mending of Beau's clothes. For his part, Beau seemed to genuinely enjoy having them there. He crafted a proper cradle for Lily from wood he had been saving for some unspecified project, and spent hours simply watching the baby sleep, an expression of wonder on his usually stoic face. On the evening of the second day, as they sat by the fire after supper, June realized with a start that she felt at home in this small cabin with this quiet, thoughtful man. The realization was both comforting and terrifying. Her husband had been dead less than 4 months. What kind of woman was she to be developing feelings for another man so soon? "You're thinking awful hard over there," Beau observed, startling her from her thoughts. June smiled apologetically. "Just wondering what tomorrow will bring." "Blacksmith still hasn't sent word," Beau noted. "Might be another day or two." Was it her imagination, or did he sound pleased by this prospect? "I can't keep imposing on you like this," June protested half-heartedly. "It's not an imposition," Beau insisted, leaning forward in his chair. "Having you and Lily here, it's been good. For me, I mean." He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking uncertain. "I've been alone a long time, forgotten what it was like to have someone to talk to at the end of the day." The simple admission made June's heart beat faster. "I've enjoyed being here," she confessed. "More than I should, perhaps." Beau's eyes met hers, and the intensity in them made her breath catch. "Why shouldn't you enjoy it? Because—" June hesitated, the words sticking in her throat. "Because Thomas hasn't even been gone 4 months. Because I should be mourning him still, not—" She trailed off, unable to articulate the confusing emotions swirling within her. "Not finding comfort in another's company," Beau finished gently. "June, grief doesn't follow rules, and finding moments of peace or happiness doesn't dishonor your husband's memory." His understanding brought tears to her eyes. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "I had a plan. Get to San Antonio, find Thomas's family, start over there, but now—" "Now," Beau prompted when she fell silent. "Now I'm not sure what I want anymore." Beau was quiet for a long moment. "What if you stayed?" he asked finally, his voice barely audible over the crackling fire. "Here, I mean, with me." June's heart leapt at the suggestion, but caution quickly tempered her reaction. "Beau, we've known each other 3 days. I know," he acknowledged, "and I know how it sounds. But I also know that in those 3 days, you've brought more life into this cabin than it's seen in years." He gestured around them. "I built this place thinking someday it would be a home, but it never was, not really. Not until you and Lily came." The sincerity in his voice made June's eyes fill with tears again. "I don't want your pity," she said, voicing her deepest fear. "Pity?" Beau looked genuinely shocked. "June, this isn't about pity, this is—" He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "This is about finding something I didn't know I was looking for. Someone who makes me want to be better than I am." He stood abruptly and moved to the window, staring out into the darkness. "I'm not asking for any promises, just a chance. Stay a while longer. See if what I'm feeling, what I think you might be feeling too, is real." The proposition was tempting, dangerously so. June glanced at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her new cradle. What about San Antonio? Thomas's family doesn't even know what happened to us. We could write to them, Beau suggested. Explain everything, and if you decide later that San Antonio is where you belong, I'll take you there myself. He turned back to face her. I'm just asking for time, June. Time to see if there could be something between us worth building on. Before June could respond, a knock at the door startled them both. Beau crossed the room in 3 long strides and opened it to reveal a young boy from town, shivering in the cold night air. "Mr. Young," the boy said, his teeth chattering. "Pa sent me to tell you that wagon's all fixed up. Ready whenever you want to come get it." Beau thanked the boy, pressed a coin into his hand, and closed the door. When he turned back to June, his expression was carefully neutral. "Seems your wagon is ready after all." June's heart sank. The decision she'd been struggling with now demanded an immediate answer. "I see," she said softly. "We can go into town first thing tomorrow," Beau continued, his voice flat. "Get you on the road to San Antonio before the weather turns again." June watched him, this man who had opened his door and his heart to her without question. In just 3 days, he had shown her more kindness and understanding than she'd known in years. Could she really walk away from that? "What if I don't want to go?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Beau went still. "What did you say?" June took a deep breath. "What if I want to stay, to see if what's between us could grow into something real?" The hope that blazed in Beau's eyes nearly took her breath away. "Do you mean that?" he asked, crossing the room to kneel before her chair. "Because if you stay, June, I swear I'll do everything in my power to make sure you and Lily never want for anything." June placed her fingers against his lips, silencing him. "I don't need promises of riches or comfort," she said softly. "All I need to know is that you'll be patient with me. That you understand I'm still healing, still figuring out who I am without Thomas." Beau gently took her hand in his. "I can be patient," he assured her. "We have all the time in the world." The next morning, they did indeed go into town to retrieve June's wagon. But instead of continuing on to San Antonio, they loaded it with supplies for the winter ahead: flour, coffee, sugar, and sturdy fabrics that June could fashion into clothes for herself and Lily. Word spread quickly through Fort Stockton that Beau Young had taken in the young widow and her baby. Some tongues wagged with disapproval at the impropriety, but most of the townsfolk understood the practical nature of the arrangement. A woman alone with a newborn had few options in the harsh Texas frontier, and Beau Young, for all his solitary ways, was known to be a man of honor. As winter deepened, the small cabin became a true home. June added feminine touches: curtains at the windows, a colorful quilt on the bed, which Beau insisted she continue to use while he slept on a pallet by the fire, wildflowers in a jar on the table when she could find them. Beau built shelves and a rocking chair, started work on an addition to the cabin that would give them more space. They were careful with each other, mindful of the fragile nature of what was growing between them. Beau never pushed for more than June was ready to give, content with simple companionship and the joy of watching Lily grow stronger each day. For her part, June found herself looking forward to their evenings by the fire, to Beau's stories of his years as a cowhand, to the quiet moments when he would read aloud from one of his precious books. December gave way to January, and January to February. As the worst of the winter weather began to ease, Beau broached the subject that had remained largely unspoken between them. "Spring's coming," he observed one evening as they sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the cool evening air. Lily, now 3 months old, slept soundly in June's arms. "You'll have good traveling weather if you're still thinking of San Antonio." June looked out at the land that had become familiar to her: the rolling plains, the distant mountains, the small garden plot where Beau had already begun turning the soil for spring planting. "I wrote to Thomas's brother last month," she admitted. "Told him what happened, where I am now." Beau's expression remained carefully neutral. "Did he write back?" "Yes." June shifted Lily to her other arm. "He was grieved to hear about Thomas, of course. Offered to take us in, help us get established there." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken questions. "And what did you tell him?" Beau finally asked, his voice low. June turned to look at him directly. In the fading light, his face was cast in shadow, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the careful way he held himself, as if bracing for a blow. "I told him thank you, but that I've found a place for Lily and me, a good place." She reached out hesitantly and placed her hand over his. "A home." The breath Beau released was almost a sob. "Are you sure?" he asked, turning his hand to clasp hers tightly. "Because I want you to stay more than anything, but not if it's out of obligation or gratitude." "It's not gratitude," June assured him, squeezing his hand. "It's, Beau, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. You've given me space to heal, to find myself again. You've loved Lily like she was your own, and I think—" She paused, gathering her courage. "I think I've fallen in love with you." The words hung in the cool evening air, an admission that changed everything and nothing at all. Because the truth was, they had been falling in love since that first night, when a desperate knock on a cabin door brought together two souls who had known too much loneliness. Beau raised her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "I love you, June Forrester," he said simply. "You and Lily both. I think I've loved you since I opened my door and found you standing there in the sleet, too proud to beg but desperate enough to try." June laughed softly, tears welling in her eyes. "We were quite a sight, I imagine." "The most beautiful sight I'd ever seen," Beau corrected, moving closer on the bench. "May I kiss you, June? I've been wanting to for months now." Instead of answering, June leaned forward, closing the distance between them. The kiss was gentle, tentative at first, then deepening as years of loneliness and months of growing affection found expression at last. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Lily stirred between them, making small noises of discontent at being squashed. "I think someone objects to being left out," Beau chuckled, gently touching the baby's cheek. "What do you say, little one? Would you mind terribly if I asked your mama to marry me?" June's breath caught. "Beau." "Too soon?" he asked, suddenly uncertain. "I didn't mean to rush you, but—" "No," June interrupted. "It's not too soon, not when it feels this right." The smile that spread across Beau's face was like the sunrise, slow, radiant, full of promise. "Is that a yes, then?" "Yes," June replied, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "Yes, I'll marry you, Beau Young." They were married in April when the wildflowers carpeted the plains in a riot of color. The ceremony was small, just the preacher, a few neighbors, and the townspeople who had come to respect the unusual couple. Lily, dressed in a christening gown June had sewn from one of Beau's old shirts, gurgled happily in Mrs. Peterson's arms as her mother and new father spoke their vows. Life wasn't always easy. The Texas frontier demanded hard work and sacrifice from all who sought to make a home there. But in the years that followed, the small cabin grew, both in size and in love. A son, William, joined their family the following year, and two more children after that. Beau's small ranch prospered, and June opened a small school for the children of nearby homesteaders. Sometimes, on cool autumn evenings when the children were asleep and the house was quiet, June and Beau would sit on the porch and watch the stars, just as they had that night when she first told him she loved him. "You ever regret it?" Beau asked once, his arm warm around her shoulders. "Staying here instead of going to San Antonio?" June considered the question, thought of the life they'd built together, the children, the land, the love that had only deepened with each passing year. "Never," she replied, nestling closer against his side. "This is exactly where I was meant to be. Where we were meant to be." And as she looked up at the man who had opened his door to a desperate young woman and her newborn baby all those years ago, June knew it was true. What had begun in a moment of crisis had blossomed into a lifetime of love, proving that sometimes the greatest journeys don't take us to new places, but to the people we're meant to find along the way.